All right, I'm going to start, and then of course we'll take all your questions as well. And I was saying this just to Destin before. I have to say, normally in a film where it sort of ends happily with a crisis and the couple gets together in the end, and I'm like, oh please, this isn't really like life. But I have to say that when Grace says to Mason, I'm sorry, I can't do this, I can't, and I'm like, oh my God, no, you have to get back together. And I realized it was because you have created such strong, and you've also helped create such strong, identifiable characters that I just cared so much about them, the cynical me. So congratulations. I mean, I just found that really sort of exciting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
It's great to make positivity authentic enough for you.
Exactly. No, I mean seriously, I think that's true because it takes a lot to make me, and it works.
I'm with you.
No, seriously. But let me ask you this question about the writing of the film and the creating these characters. I find it really interesting that you have these, Grace and Mason and Nate and the people who are like working in this home are very, very young. They're not much older than the people in the home. And that's very different too. So you don't just have one group of young people who are trying to work through things. You have like two groups of young people. Talk about the idea for this and how it came about.
That actually was one of the most interesting things about working at a place like this, which I did. It was my first job out of college, and I went into it completely clueless as to. I mean, I was very similar to the naive sort of attitude and characteristics of that Nate character, and I mean, a lot of that had to do with just the sheer fact that I was young and I didn't feel very much along the road of life than the kids that I was supposed to be taking care of. And it's strange when you're supposedly the caretaker of kids and you're supposed to be the one who is giving advice or enforcing rules that. And telling them not to do things that you do on the weekend, and telling them to trying to give advice on things that you're struggling with, and it's that part of it of the job was really difficult for me to navigate, and that was one of the most interesting things about this story. So that was definitely a part of it from the beginning.
And maybe we'll get a little more into too, but to John and to Bree, can you talk about, because yes, here are these characters who are dealing with their own issues, and I love the way it all comes out subtly but very naturalistically and organically, everybody's histories throughout the film. So here are these characters, but also characters who are dealing and taking care of and doing a pretty good job of it, I must say, of like these not much younger than them. Can you talk about how you worked on these roles?
Yes.
Or something else.
Yeah,
do that for me.
Yeah.
Tell them about it.
Well, it was so fleshed out in the script. I mean, it really was one of those experiences where it felt like it was just coming to life in my room as I read it on my laptop. It was like I saw all of it, and it was so three-dimensional and there and developed already. And when you have like a template, a script that is that good, then most of the work is almost kind of done in a sense. And so, just getting to meet with Destin initially when I got the part and talk to him about it and hear from him, and then Bree and I got together just a couple nights before we started shooting. We didn't meet each other until just about right before we got going, and Destin masterminded a very, very cool thing. He gave me a envelope to take to a dinner that I was going to have with Bree to get to know each other. And inside of it were all these little conversation starters and these little topics, and they were ranging from like philosophical things like talk about your hopes and fears about being a parent one day, or talk about one of your happiest childhood memories. But then it would be logistical stuff as well, like how do you think Grace and Mason first started dating, and so through just kind of getting to know each other and having conversations about our own histories and possible outcomes in the future and stuff, and then also the stuff about the characters, we just kind of accidentally created all this backstory, and then we got to take that into the making of the film.
Did you get the same packet of questions or information from Destin?
What? Oh no.
It was just the one to share.
Just the one. It was ours to share.
It was great because anytime we were kind of like, so let's see what's in the envelope.
Yeah. It's really perfect, and I highly recommend it. I really recommend it for anybody, a date or otherwise. If you're just scared to, if you're like me and you get scared of social situations, just bring a little envelope of things to talk about.
You don't know.
You go, how do you feel about
help with their relationships?
children?
Just let me know.
Yeah. He has a website where actually he does this. It's like it's
the
a side
Short-Term
racket.
12 dating project. You should check it out.
In case the whole filmmaking thing doesn't,
You thought you were coming just to see a film, but
I actually would like to make a comment because John loves. I feel like this is the appropriate time for comments. John always loves to say that when he read the script that it was, he just like really loved the script. But I think that there is, it takes a certain amount of creativity from an actor and a performer to read into the script and see the potential of it. And I mean, because to me it wasn't just this perfect script that then became what you see on screen. To me it was just the beginnings of ideas that I hoped to find people that would embrace those characters and see them. And not everyone who read the script was able to see Mason. And when John saw the script, something in his brain clicked, and for me as a director, that was what was most exciting. And the same thing happened with Bree, was that they both took this script that I don't think the script is perfect by any means, and I hoped that it was going to get better. And I think both of them saw something in these characters that they identified with, and I'm really, really happy that they threw themselves into it and created what you saw on screen.
well, and you're absolutely right. I mean, because when I see these like incredible characters that I care about, it's not just your script, because it's how you both interpreted it, obviously, that make you kind of go, I still care about this person. But having said that, and having you found this like a very rich, full script, did you stick to it totally? Did you do improvisation? What was the rehearsal process like as you worked through this thing? Because you've got you in this whole relationship, but yet the whole thing with the kids in this home is really rich. So, yeah, talk about it. If there's any improvisation, anything like that. Anybody, all of you.
No. You can't answer this one. You're not allowed to answer this one. You don't answer it.
Okay, you didn't answer this one. Okay, we're going right
No,
down to
because
Bree.
there are certain, as we go further along this process, there are certain people that are best to answer it, because those who should technically answer it are too modest. So I will say that there's very, very, very little improv. There are certain moments that perhaps were not exactly as Destin imagined, so in his mind they're improvised, but they're completely what was on the page. If anything, there are things that were taken away that were in the script, not things that were added. We can nitpick it, we can say, yeah, that we play that game where we're like clapping or whatever, and it's said in the script.
And Fuck
We
You,
play
Floyd
this
was not in the
game.
script.
What?
Fuck You, Floyd was not in the script.
Fuck You, Floyd, which is a very important addition to the film.
Changed
was not-
everything
It
about
did. That was a
that.
big game changer for the whole movie. But things like the Big Booty Game, which obviously it wasn't specifically written as who is going to be called out and whatever. But other than that, the things that I think are like, the things that are so striking to me, like simple scenes, like when the two of us are drawing those portraits, down to the avocado being in the beard, which are so brilliant, are in the script. That's not something that just, oh yeah, we ate dinner and he got avocado in his beard and I drew this portrait. it's not. And it's a beautiful and miraculous thing that he saw all of that. And so I give you credit. I give you credit. Doesn't credit.
Hats off to you if I had one.
You're a good writer.
He's a real good writer.
We see good
You should
things
have
for
him.
Let's see if anybody in our studio audience has any questions. Anybody? Anybody? No,
there we go.
Yes, right here.
How did you cast the parts of the children in the home? And I was particularly impressed by the actor who played Marcus. I mean, he was excellent. Where'd you find him?
For those in the back who may not be able to hear it, it's a question about how you cast the actors who play the kids in the home, and also a question about particularly Marcus.
The actor who played Marcus.
Yeah.
Thank you for that wonderful question. Because I think we've all just completely fallen in love with these kids. Not just because they're all brilliant performers. And they are. I've never worked with such professional, incredible, subtle performers. Their instincts were. I have no idea where they got them. And I talked to all their parents, and their parents have no idea where they got those instincts either. And because almost every single one of the kids that you see on screen are absolutely nothing like the characters that they're playing, and in many cases they are the exact opposite of that. And I initially was prepared to have a bag of tricks in order to trick them into getting the performances that I need, but I found that all we had to do was have a discussion about the characters, and they would. I don't know where that came from, but Keith. Bree and I were actually just talking about Keith, how much we adore him as not just a performer but just a person, and he's an incredible artist, and he just creates wherever he is. I mean, he lives up in 2 hours away from LA, up in Victorville, and I had the privilege of visiting his place, and the dude just becomes more and more of a legend the more I get to know him.
He's amazing. The mythology continues. Really.
Yeah, I went and visited his room, which is all the walls are pink. And just covered in drawings that he's just creating. It just comes out of him, and it's a way that he deals with his environment and the things that he lives in a pretty harsh environment, but somehow he's managed to be on the outside of it, and the way he's done that is through art. He was in the short film, and he just came and auditioned for the short film, which is where this story began. And he did that short and then didn't do anything afterwards. And we shot the short in 2008. We shot this in 2012. And Keith just kind of dropped off the face of the planet, and I wanted him to come in audition and audition for the role of Marcus again, but I just hadn't spoke to him in 4 years, and I sent him during our audition process, which lasted less than a month. I had sent him, I think, 6 emails and called every number that I had and couldn't get a hold of him. Thought I would have to settle on somebody else, and then finally he checked his email, which apparently he does once a month.
He says there's nothing in it.
Yeah.
He says there's nothing to check.
And then he was just like, "Cool, man, I'll come down." And he came and auditioned, and then made me cry, and we hired him on the spot. And he's just naturally the most honest, authentic artist that I know, and person too. It's just all. What did I talk about Keith forever?
You talk about this was his song?
Yeah, the end song is something that again the end credit song. I mean, he actually doesn't really like the song, but I love it. But because he came in while we were doing ADR, which is just like doing, for those of you who don't know, just replacing some dialogue, and and he came into the studio, and while he was there, we had this beat, and I asked him if he had any lyrics or anything that he could just rap something to this beat that we had, and he said he didn't have anything, but he'd just go write something. So he went and wrote that whole song in like an hour, and then came back and recorded it right there, and that's the end credit song.
Works for me. Amazing, amazing. Can you talk a little bit about the other, the actors you talked about, casting them and talking to their parents? Are any of them professionals, or was it the first jobs any of them had, or had they had experience acting?
It all ranged from somebody like Caitlin Deaver, who she plays Jaden, and she's been in a show called Justified and Last Man Standing with Tim the Toolman Taylor. And what else? She's been in it. She's been working for a decent amount.
She's in Spectacular Now.
Spectacular Now.
Yeah.
Keith Stanfield, I just told you about. Maybe I'll just talk about him.
A lot of the other kids, it was their first job. It's very.
Alex Calloway was like his first job, and his dad just they're in Florida, and his dad sent.
Who plays Sammy?
Yeah, who plays Sammy. Alex Calloway plays Sammy, and he read a casting description on some random site. We were just like throwing it out everywhere, and his dad made him stop playing video games and took him out back to audition. And he taped him on his iPhone vertically and then sent it to us horizontally. So we were all like that.
That's amazing.
He, thank God, because he was actually one of the hardest people to find, that character, and he was great. I think that was his first. I think it was his first.
Yeah,
one of his first things.
Yeah, he turned 13 while we were shooting it.
Got a Nintendo 64. He's my favorite.
And it is. I mean, it's a tough role because he's barely any dialogue if he has any, and so it really has to be.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite examples of somebody who, one of the kids that is truly the exact opposite of that character. The most talkative and excited and engaging.
Yeah, he'd be doing a dance on this stage.
Yeah, if he had a microphone, none of us would be talking. He would tell you everything about everything.
He'd be doing some stand-up.
Yeah, he probably would, and we would all love it. He's just an exuberant, wonderful light of a person, and when we had a day before, I think it was the day before we started shooting, where the kids and line staff all hung out. And I had first met him, and he was just like talking a mile a minute and wanted to talk about video games and comic books and all these things. And I thought, oh, this is an interesting choice for Sammy, not what I thought. I just assumed stupidly on my part that he was going to be playing himself. He seemed so young, too, I just assumed. And then when Destin put us in an improv together, and Destin kind of calmly was like, yeah, okay, so Alex, you're going to be Sammy now, and Bree, you're going to be Grace now, and you guys are going to do this improv together, and Bree, I want you to try and get into Sammy's world, and Alex, you just get into Sammy's world, and we'll just see what happens. And you see him very attentively kind of looking to Destin going, okay, and then he just kind of just flops over, and it was so incredible, and it actually stopped me for a second from getting in the moment of doing this, and I was shocked at his ability to, and all of them, really. I mean, Caitlin is so beautiful and has incredible parents. I mean, most of these kids have incredible parents, are so loved and are so wonderful and haven't had experiences like this, and it just is such an inspiring thing and so bizarre. It's such an anomaly as well that these kids knew what that felt like. I mean, they knew what kind of that pit of human existence feels like. It's really remarkable and magical.
And it is something that is just amazing to me is that, and it's so wonderful to kind of hear this because they're all, as just a group of kids, so wonderful and naturalistic. Sometimes you might wonder, oh, was some of this shot, really at a home? Might there be some of these kids because they just, it's like they're not acting. They're not putting it out there. They're just being these people, and the communication and miscommunications are just sort of, so organic. So that's quite wonderful. So you'll have to make more movies with all of them. Yes.
Did Keith write the rap that he did, or did you write that?
In the film? Did Keith write the rap that Marcus did in the film, or did you?
We both did. I wrote the initial draft of the rap, which I thought was pretty good. But then Keith took it and made it way better. Yeah, he's a talented dude.
Yeah. It's like go to the people that can do it the best. Is somebody? Nope, I don't want to miss anybody. Oh, but yes, right there.
Was there a specific intention behind the way that the movie was shot? So I couldn't help but notice that it's almost always someone holding the camera. Was that intentional?
So a lot of handheld camera work in this, and was that intentional? Which I guess it was, but what was your intent in shooting it that way? Yes, no, but that was your original question.
Yeah,
no,
that's what I meant.
What was your intent in using handheld camera throughout the film?
It's a great question, and it's 100% handheld. So even in moments when we were just doing a wide shot, or where we could have easily put the camera on sticks, we did not do that. I mean, there are a number of reasons for choosing that. The number one practical reason that sort of was the initial reason for every kind of aesthetic choice that we made for the movie was that performance was number one on our priority list for every scene. And for me, what I feel like allows for the best environment for performance is as much time on camera as possible, which means trying to create setups that don't take forever, so that we can spend most of our time just rolling and or working through scenes with the actors. Also, not having setups where lights and things are so hot and in the actors' faces that they completely lose the illusion of the environment that they're in. So Brett, my DP, who we've worked together for a while, and he lit mainly from the outside. Most of the lights were outside windows coming through, and then just bouncing things around the room from inside. And being handheld was practically, it allowed for a couple of things. One is that we just work a lot faster that way. We don't have to set up dolly tracks. We don't have to set up and figure out specifically how we're specifically how we're going to pull focus and do things, because Brett just operates primarily by himself. He pulls his own focus, and so we work very quickly that way. But for me personally, my favorite and I guess personal reason for wanting to do all of this aesthetically is that I think it's beautiful. For one very real reason is that Brett, with that camera on his shoulder, and Chris, our other operator, who's just as magical, they become performers in the scenes with the characters, and their instincts. When I watch this movie, I can see every little instinct that Brett has when he racks focus to somebody, when he pushes in on somebody, when he even just slightly dodges a character as they're moving past him. I see him playing and dancing with the actors in the scene, and that's something that's, I think, the easiest, most clear example of the magic of that is in the rap scene with Marcus, and that push-in that ends right on his eye was not something that was storyboarded or pre-planned. It was an instinct that Brett had to do in one of the earlier takes, and then it became something that we did for that take. But that we wouldn't have been able to have that if we were locked down on sticks. Like, we wouldn't have discovered that on set.
Yeah, and also there's the real elegance in this particular way of the handheld cameras, because never in it is there this thing of like, which can happen so often, with handheld, where it's like, whoa, it's too much, it's too much. And there really is, to me, an elegance about it, and especially you speak about him being able to pick up certain things. And I imagine when everything is shot handheld, it also gives the actors a bit of freedom. Sure, you have your marks and where you have to do things, but I can imagine it can be a little less of that, so you can really just be in the moments. I mean, is there a real difference in shooting things all with handheld, and if you're shooting something where there may be,
Yeah, it certainly felt very free. Obviously, it was there was a lot of intention behind it, but it really did. A lot of those scenes felt very, very comfortable, and like you could on the third or fourth take try something kind of different, or move in a little bit of a different way, or feel like you could, that the boundaries were not quite as tight as they can be when you're shooting things in a different fashion.
There's also less of a feeling that there's this formality to taking a take. I like the idea that it's a very fluid experience between having a conversation with Brett and then doing a scene where Brett is filming. It feels right. There was a difference in certain moments on set where if it was a more quiet, intimate moment, maybe there was a respect to those scenes, and people would kind of clear out, and only the people that would need to be there would be there. Like perhaps the scene where we shaved Marcus's head. It was a very intimate feeling because it was just the three of us in this very tiny bathroom with Brett there. But then there were also other times where it's the group scenes with all of the kids where it felt more right to have the sound people that are tuning things in the same room as us and creating a family, and we were all in this space together, and you didn't feel the difference between when we were goofing off and when we were goofing off on camera. And that was such a huge part of the experience, was that we were mimicking in some ways what was happening in the scene was happening off camera as well. And so you don't feel like you're lying. There's a certain honesty that's happening and a fluidity that happens with that is really important. And I can't at this point, it kind of ruins you in a way because you can't imagine doing it otherwise. It feels silly in a way to think that that there's this idea that someone writes a screenplay and then 2 years or many years later, then it's being shot with these people on this specific day, and then it all boils down to the way the schedule works with everyone's availability, and then it all comes down to that after all of that on this Thursday at 9 a.m. you have to feel a certain way, and if you don't feel that certain way honestly in that moment, then the scene is false. It feels much more right, I think, when there's a continuation of the experience before and afterwards, and that there is an allowance to everybody, and not just the actors needing to completely tune out that there are lights and a camera and all these things in your face, and there's a slate that smacks you before you start something that says, and now you begin, that there's something that is kind of beyond that, and allows you to feel it before and feel it afterwards, and you don't have this like pressing feeling that you're giving a performance, that we're all honestly experiencing it together, and it's a feeling that's felt by everybody in the room, and all of us respecting each other's respective roles on that set.
Yes.
Watching this movie, I thought it was so grounded in reality. I to be honest, forgot that I was watching a movie. I thought I was watching life happen. And my question to you guys is, what would you say is the difference in experience than doing something like this than doing something like Scott Pilgrim or 21 Jump Street or the musicals you've been in that are crazy or not as, they're fun, they're amazing, but it's not quite as grounded in reality? What's the difference between those kinds of projects?
So yes, just a question about talking to this seems so grounded in reality, and what's the difference, and a little bit moving on with what you were just talking about, between working on a film like this that does seem so grounded in reality, and the other ventures that you've been working on.
I love your shirt, by the way. It's so strong and so good.
I know. I just saw that too.
I agree with you.
You should turn around and show it to everybody.
Oh, you did?
Oh my God!
It's so funny. It's so funny.
Yeah,
that is a plus movie. That is absolutely brilliant.
Anyone who knows Ridley Scott is here, I'm sorry.
It's so good.
I hope you make an I Love Short-Term 12 one. For the next
Put that on the
Q&A
back of
you
the
go
shirt.
to.
I review movies and I review this movie twice, so.
That is funny. I think that to answer your question, I think that every time you go into a film, it's different. And you realize and you recognize that the fun part of it is that you don't go into it or go out of it the same way twice. And I enjoy that as part of it. And working with a director and working with the other actors and even working with the sound people and the costume people, it's different every single time. And there are certain people that are very willing to collaborate and other people that are very specific in their vision, and there's beauty in both. And any one person being different changes the entirety of the situation. There is a certain, as long as it's not an extreme dictatorship, as long as there's pretty much dictatorship, but there's like this, a little bit of a feeling that like it's a democracy, then it works really well. And something like working on Scott Pilgrim, where Edgar is so specific about it. I mean, I wasn't allowed to blink ever, and he had very specific ideas as to where my eyes were at certain lines, and it was very laid out. But it's so fun and wonderful and part of the experience that it's great. If someone was telling me, you have to do it like this or else you're bad, then the whole thing is ruined. But it's fun in all of the different ways that it can be. There is a wonderment in being in something like Short-Term 12, where it's small and you are questioned but not told. That is also beautiful and very empowering. But I wouldn't want to do any one way all the time. It's important to kind of confine yourself and then allow yourself to explore more and enclose yourself and contract all the time. I think that that's part of it. It's the beauty of you can't control your day, but you want to in some ways, but then you also have to leave room for spontaneity. It has to be both, I think. You agree?
Yeah, that's right on the money. You hit the nail on the head.
But yours is. But you should talk about yours because there's a difference between doing something repetitively and then having something on the spot.
Short theater is very different because you do it just over and over and over again. You do it 8 times a week and 2 times in one day sometimes, and so that's a whole other kind of process. I mean, I agree with Bree though that whatever it is, on theater, television, a film, whether it's a big budget or a small budget or handheld or all shot on dolly tracks or whatever, it's always fun. One of the fun parts is getting there and kind of reading the vibe and saying, it's going to be done this way. Oh, okay, I am not really used to that, but I must, I still have to show up and be involved, so I have to take the tools that I take everywhere and bring them into this game and reformat. In a sense, and it's very, very, very true and very smart what Bree said about it's important to do to try it all and obviously and to not like confine yourself to this is the only way that it works, because there's so many ways to get results.
Well, I just want to I just want to go a little bit back to the film. We'll probably be ending soon. I want to talk to you or have you talk about. I love the way you began and you end the film with the very similar scenes of Mason telling these stories. And I love that at the end, it's all exposition about Marcus, but it's told as a brilliant, beautiful story, so that you don't have to go out of this whole story to go somewhere and we see Marcus being all talkative, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have it all in this in this wonderful story that mirrors the story at the beginning and the way they're all talking. Did you always have that in mind, that that's what you do when you're writing the script? I'm going to have this the beginning and the end, or at any point were you thinking, oh, I have to have this scene, say for Marcus, but you said, no, we won't do it as a scene, we'll do it as a story?
I do remember getting notes about that last scene in various stages, that some people did want to see it, and I personally did not want to see it. I feel like if we saw it, it would have ruined it. To us, I'm sure it would have been fine, but I think people's imaginations are typically much more vivid and powerful than anything that somebody can put up on a screen. And so, storytelling is such an integral part of almost every person that I've talked to that works in an environment like this. They can tell you some of the most incredible stories with such amazing twists and setups, and make you cry and make you laugh, and the opening story was taken almost verbatim from one of these interviews that I conducted with a friend of mine who's been working in a place like this for a very long time, and I think it was after our 5th or 6th beer together that he told me that story, that I was recording the whole thing, and a lot of it, that opening story was just me listening to this recording and typing it straight into the movie, and it was it was a really cool thing for me to be able to put that into this film and have storytelling, the act of like voicing and storytelling, be a part of the fabric, and it just so happened that it just fit in with this theme of the healthiness of letting things come out of your mouth instead of holding them inside, and it just felt like a nice way to begin and end the movie.
Yeah, it was. It was just really, really lovely. Now, the film's opening soon, yes? Do we know when?
Yes,
I'd love to talk about
Yep.
that.
Anybody have a date?
It's a week
August.
from tomorrow.
Yeah, August 23rd.
I just saw the film for the first time, but I happen to know it's a week. it's right
Wait,
here.
were you the
This
doctor?
person who never saw these people
person
before.
who showed us on the ultrasound?
Oh, I am also a cast member.
Oh, you are? Are you in the film?
I am, but I don't like to talk.
And you didn't take this seat, no.
But it is a week from tomorrow here and at the Sunshine, and in LA at the ArcLight Hollywood and the Landmark.
Oh, that's right. It is. We
What
are
a
showing
good
it here.
Samaritan. Thank you
Yeah,
so
please
much.
tell everybody. Again, I've never seen the film before. I'm really moved by it. Please tell everyone you know.
And it will be true, actually.
I'm getting that your name is, I'm getting a J name. Could it be Josh?
You got it.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
Oh,
Crazy.
thank you. That's wonderful.
Okay.
He's right, you know.
He is.
Is it actually playing in this theater?
I'm not sure what theater is playing it, but it's probably
No,
playing
it's
in-
here.
It's in the Eleanor Bunin Center here.
It's
Yeah,
in one
it's
of these
here.
theaters. It's in this theater or it's in the Beale. One or the other.
Okay,
You come
August-
into the building because
this-
you're all going to want to come and see it again. Come into the
August
building.
23rd.
There you
It's
go.
playing here. It's playing at the ArcLight in Hollywood.
If you're in LA.
If you're in LA, or if you know
Sunshine.
people, if you've got any extended family there, or you even know one person, if you've got friends that could go there, or maybe if you want to drive down, do it. Take a flight over there if you want to help us out over there.
Yeah.
Anything you want to do, really.
I've seen the movie a bunch of times now, and it's just still good. So if you want to go back to
I recommend seeing it. I cried. I just saw the last 15
6 or
minutes.
7
and I
views, I
started
think,
crying.
is necessary.
Or if you just want to buy a ticket and not show up. that would
You
also
can
work.
do that.
It's all about those box office figures. No. Look, go see it again. I think I will, and of course I have the opportunity to be able to drop by any time. And also downtown. Do tell your friends. I want to thank you all, and also for speaking so passionately, not just about the film, but about the work and the way you all work. So it was really wonderful to have you here, and lovely to see the film.
Thank you so
Thanks so
much.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
I look forward to it. You guys talk passionately about your project next time it's here. Or anywhere.